Hello. In this video we shall be learning about the interval notation of real numbers. Now before we go on to understand the interval notation, we need to understand one thing. What is so special about the set of real numbers? Now the speciality is that between any two real numbers, there is always another real number. Now let us understand. Say for example, I say what is a real number which is between 1 and 2. So what do? We add 1 and 2. So we get 3 and we divide by 2. So we get 1.5. Now between 1 and 1.5 we have 1.25. Between 1 and 1.25 we have, we can go on adding the two numbers and we can go on getting another real number in between. So between any two consecutive integers there is an infinite set of real numbers. Now it is this property of real numbers that compels us to understand the interval notation. Now let us take up an example. Suppose if I say 2 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 5. Now in this case, if I ask you what is the minimum value of x, you are bound to say that x at the minimum can be 2 and at the maximum it can be 5. Now because the values of x are bounded on both sides, we say it is closed on both ends, and so we will call it a closed interval, and it is written as x belongs to, and the closed interval is written this way, 2, 5 and a box bracket on both sides. Now let us take up another example. The same numbers, but there is no equal to sign in this case. Now over here if I ask you what is the minimum value of x, you will say it's a value which is greater than 2. But what value? Say for example, if you say 2.1, I say it is 2.05. Then you say 2.05, I say 2.025. So it keeps on going. We do not get a minimum value of x in this case. We know it's any real number which is greater than 2, but what is the exact value we do not know. And so because we do not have a lower bound or the upper bound for the value of x over here, we call it an open interval, and it is written this way with curve brackets. So if in case you have bounded value on one side but unbounded on the other side, we say it's a closed open interval, and it is written this way. And if it is 2 less than x less than or equal to 5, we shall write x belongs to open and then closed. So to understand it in a better way and to express it properly, if you have a less than or equal to x less than or equal to b, we can write it as a comma b, and this is what is called a closed interval. Then the second case, a less than x less than b, it's unbounded on both sides, and so we call it an open interval, a comma b, and this is called an open interval. Then the third one, a less than or equal to x less than b, it's called a closed interval, written this way, closed open interval. This is closed open, and then comes the last one, that's a less than x less than or equal to b, and it is written a comma b, and this is called an open closed interval. Now, why there is a need to understand this interval notation? Because later on in the other chapter, that's the chapter of functions, it's going to play a very crucial role when you sit down to make the graph of an integer, greatest integer value function. So please do remember these closed intervals, open intervals, closed open intervals, and open closed intervals, and the basic and the logic behind calling them closed or open intervals.